नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवी सरस्वती व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीम् उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टकी। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। We are reading Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, 3rd canto, 23rd chapter, titled as Devahūti's Lamentation. We are going to read few shlokas in which there is a description of a castle in the air created by Kardama Muni. Devahūti, who is a faithful wife of Kardama Muni, she served her husband very nicely, and her husband Kardama Muni was pleased with the austerity, with the tapasya which was performed by his wife. So Devahūti did not care for her own comforts, but she looked after the needs of her husband Kardama Muni, because Kardama Muni was doing tapasya of Lord Vishnu. And when he was doing tapasya for pleasing Lord Vishnu, Devahūti helped him by supplying all the necessities. So Kardama Muni, being pleased, asked Devahūti what is the blessing she wants. So she said that I need a beautiful palatial house and a wonderful son. So Kardama Muni, with his yogic power, created a palace. Now this palace is described here in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam in next few shlokas. This was a palace which was floating in the air, and the description of the palace is here. Sarva kama dugham divyam sarvaratna samanvitam sarvavadi upachyo drakkam manistambhir upakshritam. So this palace, which was traveling in the air, it was a wonderful structure bedecked with all sorts of jewels, adorned with pillars of precious stones and capable of yielding whatever one desired. So this palace was studded with all the stones and jewelries, and very, very valuable decoration was there. And whatever one wants, just desire it, and it was just like a desired tree the palace could give. And this palace was equipped with every form of furniture and wealth, which tended to increase in course of time. So this palace was fully equipped, and usually the things in the house, they deteriorate with the time. But here, this palace was not like that. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada is explaining, the castle created in the sky by Kardama Muni may be called a castle in the air. But by his mystic power of yoga, Kardama Muni actually constructed a huge castle in the air. To our feeble imagination, a castle in the sky is an impossibility. But if we scrutinizingly consider the matter, we can understand that it is not impossible at all. So modern scientists cannot even imagine a floating castle. But with the yogic power, it is possible to make it happen. If the Supreme Personality of Godhead can create so many planets carrying millions of castles in the air, a yogi like Kardama Muni can easily construct one castle in the air. The castle is described here as Sarva Kama Dugham, which is whatever one desired. So with the yogic power, when you do Krishna Bhakti, you get yogic power. And that power, you can do everything. But people, they run for the small, small things. So here it is mentioned, the castle was full of jewels. Even the pillars were made up of pearls and valuable stones. The valuable jewels and stones were not subjected to deterioration, but were everlastingly and increasingly opulent. If we sometimes hear of castles thus bedecked on the surface of this earth also, the castle constructed by Lord Krishna for his 16,100 wives so bedecked with jewels that there were no need of lamp lighting during the night. So this stones which were studied could shine in the middle of the night. And the further description of this castle is in the next two shlokas, which says that the castle was fully equipped with all necessary paraphernalia, and it was pleasing in all seasons. It was not like that summer you need air conditioner and winter you need heating. It was perfect in all the weathers. It was decorated all around with flags, festoons, and artistic work of variegated colors. It was further embellished with wreaths of charming flowers that attracted sweetly humming bees, and with tapestries of linen, silk, and various other fabrics. So it was not only studded with stones, but there were wonderful gardens, wonderful flowers in the palace, the flying palace, and there were wonderful fabrics decorating the entire palace. Further, the description of palace is: the palace looked charming with beds, couches, fans, and seats, all separately arranged in 7 stories. So this palace, flying palace, was not an ordinary palace. It was 7-story palace with all sorts of beds, couches, fans, everything, extravaganza. So the yogi, with his mystic power, he didn't have to work 2 jobs, 3 jobs, but with his yogic power, he could create this palace. So Prabhupada writes, it is understood from this verse that the castle had many stories. The words Upari Upari Vinayashatta indicates that the skyscrapers are not newly invented. Even in those days, millions of years ago, the idea of building many storied houses was current. They contained not merely 1 or 2 bedrooms, but many different apartments. And each was completely decorated with cushions, bedsteads, sitting places, and carpets. So very, very opulent, and a multi-story apartment, floating apartment. Further, it is mentioned, its beauty was enhanced by artistic engravings here and there on the walls. The floor was emerald with coral daisies. So Prabhupada writes, at the present moment, people are very proud of their architectural art, yet the floors are generally decorated with colored cement. It appears, however, that the castle constructed by yogi power of Kardama Muni had floors of emerald with coral daisies. So this palace was very, very opulent. Further, the description of palace, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam has in detail, the palace was very beautiful with coral thresholds at the entrances, and its doors bedecked with diamonds, gold pinnacles crowned with its domes of sapphire. So detailed description is given by Vedvyasji here that this palace was no ordinary palace. You can't even have such imagination of this palace. Further, with the choicest rubies set in its diamond walls, it appeared as though possessed of eyes. It was furnished with wonderful canopies and greatly valuable gates of gold. So Prabhupada writes, the artistic jewelry and decorations giving the appearance of eyes are not imaginary. Even in the recent times, the Mughal emperors constructed their palaces with decorations of jeweled birds with eyes made up of valuable stones. Actually, if you see Taj Mahal, it has some of those architecture. The stones have been taken away by the authorities, but the decorations are still present in some of the castles constructed by Mughal emperors in New Delhi. The royal palaces were built with jewels and rare stones resembling eyes, and thus at night they would give reflective light without need of lamps. So the architecture was beyond imagination. Further, here and there in that palace were multitudes of live swans and pigeons. So it was not only decorated with stones and gold and all, but there were beautiful gardens, and in that gardens were beautiful swans and pigeons, as well as artificial swans and pigeons. So life like that, the real swan rose above them again and again, thinking them live birds like themselves. Thus the palace vibrated with sound of this bird. So there were decorations of the birds. Seeing them, the real birds got attracted, and that increases the value of the palace. So the palace is so beautiful. And this last shloka, it says that the castle had pleasure grounds, resting chambers, bedrooms, and inner and outer yards, designed with an eye to comfort. All this caused astonishment to the sage himself. The palace was so beautiful that Kardamamuni himself was surprised that how come this is so beautiful. So the perpetual Prabhupada writes, the Kardamamuni, being saintly person, was living in an humble hermitage. But when he saw the palace constructed by his yogic power, which was full of resting rooms and inner and outer yards, he himself was astonished. That was the way of God-gifted person. A devotee like Kardamamuni exhibited such opulence by his yogic power at the request of his wife. But when the opulence was produced, he himself could not understand how such manifestations could be possible. When a yogi's power is exhibited, the yogi himself sometimes astonished. So this palace was so opulent that Kardamamuni himself could not understand that how come this palace came into existence, because Kardamamuni always had lived in a humble atmosphere. So in this way we see the wonderful palace description. And when the Devahūti, looking at the gigantic opulent palace with the displeased heart, Kardamamuni could understand her feelings, because he could understand the heart of anyone. Therefore, he personally addressed to his wife. But now, seeing this palace, Kardamamuni was surprised, but his wife was not happy. It's a very strange thing that this palace, opulent flying palace, is created by Kardamamuni, but Devahūti, even after looking at this gigantic palace, she was not pleased. So then Kardamamuni approached his wife and asked, oh, I created such a beautiful palace for you. How come you are not so happy? So then Devahūti will answer the question tomorrow. So we'll see that tomorrow. Randraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari.